I'm Gwendolyn Ellen from the Oregon IPM Center, and I'm speaking with Brad Bailie here in Connell, Washington at Lenwood Farm.
This particular habitat area that we're standing in is basically a windbreak for the shop. So it's several rows of trees, and in the alleyways in between are native, well, I put a mixture that probably had 11 different species in it, I want to say. It had native grasses and native forbs. And so what's interesting is over time the forb mix has changed. When I first was establishing the area, I was giving it overhead water, and so everything in the alleyways was just beautiful. I had all sorts of different species doing really well. But then when I decided to pull the pipes out and just go for whatever natively could survive on the rainfall we get, it's really dwindled down to just 2 or 3 species that seem to do okay. And so this flax, this stuff here is one of the this is blue flax. That blooms really beautifully for quite a while, and then I just let it all go to seed, and then when it's dry and ready to drop seed, basically after the summer's over, when all the plants have had a chance to produce seed, then I'll just come in and kind of high mow it, knock everything down so it has a chance to maybe seed out a little bit and then regrow. It depends on the year. There have been years where it looked solid blue, like there was just tons of flax, and then other years, I guess it's just rainfall dependent or environmental impact coming on.
How it germinates for that year specifically?
Something. Once you get this kind of mat of grass, it's hard for stuff to germinate. So, it is what it is. The ones that are established, they're going to still do fine, and then maybe once in a while a seed will fall and start another. I wish more of the species would have stayed intact in the alleyways. I was kind of sad to see those go by the wayside, but there's still a few. So in a month here, or probably less, the flax will be blooming, and it's really nice. This plastic, we were going to maybe talk about plastic. One thing that I've decided about plastic is that it becomes more of a nuisance after a bit. In my new habitats, I'm not going to use plastic. This was part of an NRCS project, so they were really encouraging the use. In fact, I think it might have been a requisite to getting the funding to use the black plastic. But what happens is because we have drip lines, like we just have a plastic like 1/2 inch, 5/8 something line that we put drip emitters in, so it's under there hidden, and so if you get any damage, or rodents will chew on it, sometimes coyotes will chew on it, people will accidentally hit it, so you have to think about, okay, how am I going to repair that, and how am I going to get access to it? And the other thing is that rodents love to hang out underneath the plastic, so that's not ideal. You can't really have any rodent control, like if you have a dog or a cat around that can go after them.
A rat dog.
Yeah, something. So, I've had to figure out a few things about what works and what doesn't, but this is a nice windbreak. It's not perfect, and those first couple years when it had all those forbs growing and it just looked all colorful, like 5 or 6 different colors, that was great. But it's got yarrow in here, and it's got the flax, so it still looks nice.
And you have blossom, right?
So this will be just loaded with beneficial insects here once it starts flowering. I really like vetch for that reason. Plus it's just it's fixing nitrogen too, so the plants are going to benefit from it.
And this is...
But yeah, this is nice. It's got nice big bunch grasses.
So you're just going to continue to water this too? On drip?
Yeah,
You've got emitters in here?
I've got emitters under the plastic.
Oh. Okay.
Which, like I said, won't be doing that again. I'll just use a straw mulch instead of a plastic mulch. That way you can deal with.
This is again.
One thing, because I've grown vetch on most of these corners, so if there is water, vetch always seems to appear.
Yeah,
so like you can see where there's a lot of vetch coming.
Right. And you got blossom here.
Yeah, this is golden currant. It's
right there.
Yeah, I mean it's there, but look at it, like these little piddly plants, like why aren't they thriving? I wonder if they get too much water. Like on this, so you can tell on this one, I didn't do any mulch, I didn't do anything. We just planted into a grassy corner.
Yes, see, and you see all that grass there?
Yeah.
That's really hard for this rose to come up through. But not the currant, because...
Yeah, the currant, it does okay.
It smells great.
It's tedious to pick the berries, but they're really good.
Are you?
Do you? Sometimes I do. If I
do
think about it, sometimes I forget. Most of the time I forget.
Right. So students planted this.
So this was a WSU class project, and we just did it, and it wasn't really well planned out or anything. We just put them in the ground, and this is what happened. And this has been several years, and I just, I left alleyways so I could mow, and I have drip lines in there, so they get water, but we're not maintaining them now. So there could be lots of leaks, and I wouldn't know because I can't even find the drip line anymore.
Right.
That's the thing about these corners. Like you can start out beautifully and think, oh, it had so many different species of native grasses, and then it had yarrow, and it was just nice. And then one year, I don't know if I had handlines out, and I would sometimes water it in the fall thinking, I better give it some water so it makes it through the winter well. I don't know if I put too much water on one time or what, but it's like everything disappeared. And now slowly, like the yarrow is coming back, so there's a lot of yarrow here. But it's like all the really nice native grasses that I had here seem to just disappear. And
interesting.
I don't know if it was my management or over managing it or under managing. It's sometimes really hard to know what the key. And I've told a lot of people this is that you have to treat it almost as if it's a crop. Do the same kind of thought process that you do for growing crops. You have to think, okay, I need to prep this soil. Like this site, I fertilized it. I grew a cover crop the first year down the strips before I even planted the native mix, and we mulched the rows where the trees are going. We put a lot of straw in there, and then we spaded that in. And so I did a lot of intensive work to get this one established, and that's probably why it looks good, because the more you put into it, the better it seems to do. Because I've had other habitat areas where I just kind of did it quickly and didn't take the time to really put the effort in to make it right, and those they don't turn out sometimes. One nice thing about having habitat on your farm is it just feels more like home. It's just to be in this wide open space the way we farm here. There's not a lot of above ground growth besides the crops. It's just the native areas are sage, and it's nice to have some vertical differentiation on your farm.
Vertical diversity.
Yeah, I guess it's diversity, and definitely birds. I mean, I don't know exactly what birds are doing for me in the field. Maybe nothing, but it's nice to have birds around. And shows the species. There's a green lacewing.
Where?
Pretty sure. Seems early for them, but.
This one right there.
Yep.
Yeah, there looks like drunken insects. That's how I know.
Yeah. One thing was really cool. You know how I do those alyssum strips in my onions?
Yeah.
So a few years ago, there were so many alyssum in this onion field. So many green lacewing in the alyssum and out in the onion field. One evening I was just kind of walking through the onions, and it was like clouds of green lacewings coming up out of the field, and I thought, oh man, this is cool.
That's cool. That's why you do it. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's even like these thrips are a major insect in onions, but I have a lot of predatory thrips that are controlling those. So you'll see the thrips population start to come up, but then it never becomes an issue. I think a lot of people think, oh, you can't do, or you got to control them. Most conventional guys are just on a spray program. They're just spraying for thrips all the time. It's been years, more than a decade that I've sprayed. And I never really wanted to spray for thrips in the beginning. Like, I never felt like it did any good. And I was building all this habitat around and thinking, why am I like, I'm trying to do this the way so that I don't have to try to control these with whatever, you know, and the organic stuff to try to control them isn't that great. So honestly, I just said, no, we're done spraying. And, you know, it just kind of
made a balance.
Yeah. One thing that I used to notice when I'd work in my cover crops, the fact that, you know, this would be like May, late May, early June, and the cover crops were just loaded with beneficials. And so I was working that in, and then they had to disperse to somewhere. So I think they did go to the fields and the little habitat areas that I have. And this is like an acre probably, but it makes a nice little spot on the farm. I've got bushes, I've got trees, I've got natives, I've got veg, you know, it's a happy place.
And it's working for you.
Yeah, I like it. It's better than looking at a weedy corner, for sure.
Yeah. Or old equipment in your corner, or...
Yeah. So yeah, we can go over to the new habitat area. So part of why I chose that area, because see how it's a natural drainage way, like the water, you can tell that
the green part down there,
that all the water that would drain out of this field either during the winter, or sometimes I get a little bit of irrigation runoff, so then it naturally drains down through that green area, like between the two fields,
right where the tractor, in front of the tractor.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that, I decided that's going to be where I do my next habitat planting, because there's water that sometimes runs through that. Like if we get a big spring runoff, there'll actually be water running through there. It's not like a creek or anything, but it's just a natural drainway down to the coulee.
You can use more diverse species down there because you have more water.
We've got the drip system in. I did put a riser there that I could hook on my aluminum hand lines to, so that I could do overhead water here, because actually that was a pretty nice way in that other insectary to bring it up with the overhead water. That way the alleyways, these alleyways, so I have in mind to actually till out these weeds and try to, at some point, this won't be part of the cost share. The drip lines and the shrubs are, and these bird boxes were part of it. Yeah, and so any water that runs out of the circles, which I don't like to see happen, but it does, because I have problems with my well water. It creates soil sealing, and so water penetration is a big issue. And so when I'm irrigating my crops, a fair bit of water runs out of the fields, unfortunately. And this area is nice because it captures that, slows it down, and then like down in the bottom, it's just loaded with yarrow and vetch. And in fact, I was thinking, well, I should maybe plant some, what's the monarch butterfly use?
Asclepias, showy milkweed.
Yeah, the milkweed. Like maybe I should do some milkweed plantings down here, because
they do well, because they like being on the top of the edges of watery areas. Yeah, that would be nice.
So I've already planted the ponderosas down here in the bottom, and I think I want to see some color in the fall, so I actually am getting some aspens, and I'm going to put some aspens down toward the bottom here too, because they tend to sucker out and grow these groves.
In our valley.
Yeah, and I think that would be pretty. And that over there I left because it's got pretty good bunch grasses, and so that's why we decided over there we were gonna spade it like this. We were prepped to do it. We had drug some shanks through the ground to loosen it a little bit so that we could spade it. But then I got to thinking, you know, that's actually not bad grass. So over there, I'm going to try just the planting right into the grass thing and see how that goes. And we decided to follow the contour of this pivot and that pivot. So those lines follow that contour of that circle, and these follow that circle. Just, I don't know, I didn't want it to look too symmetrical. I wanted it to look a little bit
it's a good thing to do.
Diverse.
Right.
So I've got to figure out, okay, how am I going to plant these so it doesn't just look like I have rows, but you have to be able to maintain in between them. So I couldn't have just planted haphazardly. So that's like, how do you do it and make it easy to manage and then not just look like some symmetry? You know, I want it to look more like nature and not like it's been like.
But you have to water it, so
Yeah.
that makes it.
Yeah.
Because it's already going to seed.
Well, that's why I said I don't have great water pressure here, because the line coming from that well is actually only like a 2-inch line, and it reduces down to 1.25 inches. And so I can't push that much water down here. So having that riser, I'll only be able to run like 7 or 8 sprinklers. So it's going to be a little labor intensive to move the sprinklers along here. But without water, obviously, you know, in this dry climate, nothing happens. Like, you get just a little bit of weed growth, and it's not even that much weed growth. So I have to do something here. If I want this to be nice habitat, I have to prep the ground. I probably should grow a cover crop, like spend a year just growing a cover crop.
Grow a good cover crop.
But that means I have to, that's the thing where you come into like, do I have time for this, or can I afford this time? Like, so moving those hand lines around, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but when you're busy doing 100 other things, to come out here and play around with some pipes, it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. So, I mean, I guess if I had kids, I'd say, hey, go move those pipes. But I don't have kids, so I got to pay people to do stuff like that. I had thought about maybe doing some sort of a micro sprinkler, but that's a lot more money. And so we just decided to go this route. And I don't know, looking at it now, I'm like, why am I doing this time of year? But I remind myself, it's because you didn't do it last year, dummy.
Not either.
Okay.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I know.
That's the thing. When you're running a farm, all of this stuff, it's great, and I love doing it, but it's like, can I process it all? Can I remember, oh yeah, I got to go dump the carcasses out of that owl box.
Exactly on a very small scale, Brad. And I have to remind you, you're getting bigger.
I know. I'm getting much bigger. And my farm is getting, you talking about my age?
I'm talking about your farm.
Oh.
Your farm is getting bigger, not you.
Well, it's either this or just getting older.
Your acreage is getting bigger. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Your acreage is getting bigger.
I'm getting much slower. No, this is about the way I've been most of my life.
Oh, gosh.
I'm a little slow on the uptake. Okay, so in the beginning, I actually, you know, I had done a really detailed planting plan, and we had strips of flowering. We had the golden currant, which have mostly survived, and then I had woods rose that hasn't survived. And I had a diverse grass mix, and now it seems like most what has survived is this basin wild rye, which is good because it's very, very prolific. And then because I grew cover crops here at some point, the vetch is mixed in it. So that's what I was going to try to do. Because the drip lines have gotten basically too old and too eaten up and too burned. You know, just one time I had so much residue here, I thought, well, I better kind of burn this. Because it was like so thick of a mat that I felt like nothing was going to grow through it. So I did a little prescribed burn, and I happened to burn up some of my plants and some of my drip tape. So probably won't do that again. Yeah. So like it's gone through many years, and some years I've taken the time to get it watered, and some years I haven't. So I think that's why it's like not pristine, but it's still, like you said, it's decent habitat, and it's better. Again, it's better than just a completely weedy corner that you have to continually mow. You know, so I do have something established here that's doing some good and providing some cover and some refuge for insects.
But yeah, you have a very functionally diverse area here. You have a bird perch there.
I do.
So like you say, it's adding to diversity, and it's not a weedy corner of cheatgrass or icky. And
it does get like this wild rye gets, you know, 5-6 feet tall. So
I love it.
It's a good one. Last year we were out here and there was a porcupine running around out here. I hardly ever see porcupine, so we had porcupine habitat.
Oh, porcupine habitat.
I've seen badgers, so that's good.
No.
Yeah, so you've got small brunette, which the deer love. This is I believe that's sandfoin.
Yeah.
I've got yarrow. Yeah, yarrow. These are bunch grasses, different types of bunch grasses.
Right, which are doing really well.
I mean, because I'm organic and I'm not gonna spray this. I actually hand weeded it last year during the.
Brad.
That was expensive, probably. It doesn't make a lot of sense financially, but I still have a ton of weeds. So weed control in areas like this is a challenge. So now I'll be stuck with mowing it. Like when the weeds get tall enough and start to go to seed, I'm going to need to mow it. But hopefully over time, I can get a decent mixture of native species to survive here and not be overtaken by the annual weeds that roll through the area, like the mustards. And I see mostly mustard here is what it looks like.
I see mostly bunch grass.
Well, yeah. You look at the bright side. I'm you're the optimist. I'm the pessimist.
Let's see. I see. Where did you get the mix?
I just got it from a local seed company.
Oh, really?
And this was part of an equip project too.
Right.
They cost shared me on the seed and a little bit of ground prep. So it's just called conservation cover. So the idea is to just, it's another area where I don't have irrigation for, and I'm not planning on putting up any irrigation, so I wanted to plant something that could survive on its own. Right. And it was a dry year last year, so it was a tough year to get started, but we do have a start here, so hopefully,
good start here.
Hopefully now it will take off and I can keep the weeds somewhat at bay. Right. Because that's my fear, like you don't want to create areas that are reservoirs for weeds that then break free in the fall and then roll across the rest of your farm dropping their seeds. So, mowing is an important part of management so they don't roll across, but then you get really disillusioned when miles away weeds are blowing across your place. Hopefully they drop their seeds before they get to your place, but yeah, it sometimes look like armies of Russian thistles and mustard carcasses blowing across, and you're like,
Well, I did take a picture.
So anyway, this is kind of what would be the normal habitat if we weren't farming, or if we hadn't broken it out back in the beginning of the 1900s. Yes, and if you go down into the bottom of this coulee, you'll find like native buckwheats and arrowflower. Is it arrowflower or?
You're talking about.
I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, it's a yellow flower, arrow leaf.
Lomations, I bet. I think she found some lomations.
Definitely been interesting to watch it progress over the years, and realize you do make mistakes sometimes, and try to learn from those, and always trying to get better.
Great.